everyone, to the Jagged Edge. This is our first episode.
Woo.
It really is.
We mean it.
That's right. You will not find another one. My name is Chris. This is my co-host Ian.
Hey, what's up?
And this is a show about whatever we want it to be about. Really, no, we're gonna talk about movies. We're gonna talk about games. We're gonna talk about nerdy stuff. We're gonna dig right into it. We're a couple nerds that like to talk about nerdy things, and we want to share that with all of you. So yeah, Ian, what's the topics for this week?
Well, it's man, how to explain it? There's a whole lot of ground to cover with this one. It's a pretty big topic, but I think we can make our way through it. We got console versus PC versus mobile versus portable.
You know, that's as daunting to me as when you brought it up early in the week. Yeah. And I thought about it all week. I'm like, no, we can square that circle. We can do that in one show. And now you just said it again. And I'm like, all right. So you know, this show may take a while, people. I hope you're ready to listen.
It's one we initially thought could possibly be even a series you could go on at length about. But hey, you know, gaming is one of the things that brought us together. So why not start that way?
It surely did. Our friendship did come from the true roots of nerdism, especially considering the game.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get into that. Maybe not. I don't really think that's too relevant in the overall topic, but right. I'm sure at some point it'll come out. But before that, we have a section of the show that we want to do, something we want to share. It is called 5 Things from this week.
5 things.
Five things. Okay. All right. I'm just gonna go then.
Yeah.
Wait, no. Except for you're the first one.
Yeah. So okay. This is just some roll time here. So you can just have like the 5 things. One of like the 5 things you laugh and cut on. We have the theme come in, and then we just start it off. I'll start.
Oh, I'll do that however I feel like it, sir.
All right.
Although that's probably going to get cut out now. So now I definitely will edit it somehow.
Yeah. Probably should.
Okay. Well, you just go ahead and start with number 1 when you're ready.
All right. I'll just give a quick count. 3, 2, 1. First off, Paul McCartney is suing Sony/ATV to regain rights to the Beatles song. Now, this is pretty important because it could possibly become one of the most important legal battles in music. We've seen it in a long time. For music fans out there, you probably realized for a while that Michael Jackson was when he really purchased those rights into having the Beatles property. This was back during the 80s, and having this issue brought back up now, it's pretty substantial in music. So. The timing of the suit's something else. I'm not sure the rest of the details for it, but rest assured you're probably going to hear a lot about this one going forward.
All right, yeah. So this week, and actually today, this being the 19th, although this is coming out tomorrow, but on Thursday the 19th, the second Logan trailer came out. The first trailer, which came out in the last quarter of 2016, really surprised a lot of people. It was a great trailer. A lot of people anticipating this movie. And from all reports of what this movie is going to be like, we're going to finally get the Wolverine movie that we wanted. The first two really missing the mark. But this new second trailer came out. I believe it's the final trailer for this movie. Looks great.
Yep.
Looks awesome. Going to be the introduction of X-23, and it's said this is going to be Hugh Jackson's last time as Wolverine. Character has been playing, I think, like going on 20 years.
It's been a minute.
It's been a long time. So yeah, that is coming out. I almost said November. This is coming out March 7th. I think it's probably going to end up being, even beyond comic book movies, probably going to be one of the better movies of the year.
Yeah. It was this is a really gritty arc in the comic series. The movie's shaping up well along a similar vein, so check it out. Right in line with movies, those of you who are Miyazaki fans, of course, you might remember a couple of the other major films. One right before his retirement, The Wind Rises, and Spirited Away, Princess Mononoke. I could go on and on. But Miyazaki is actually planning a film in 2019, turning to the big screen. It's going to be called Boro the Caterpillar. Don't have a full breadth of details about it right now, but he's made a ton of sweeping stories, great tales, and I think it's just going to be another fun entry.
I don't know anything. That almost wasn't English to me.
You're missing.
I'll take your word for it. Take your word for it. I'm continuing on the topic of animation and movies. Let's see. Earlier in 2016, Sony had rolled out release dates for several upcoming Spider-Man movies. One of which was an odd one because it was noted as an animated Spider-Man movie, and we had no idea what that was. This week, Sony did announce the specifics to that movie. This animated Spider-Man movie is going to be focused on Miles Morales. It's going to be a standalone movie based on his story outside of the MCU universe and outside of anything to do with the new reboot for Spider-Man. So it's interesting. It's going to be a lot of people have been wondering how Sony's going to tackle introducing Miles Morales to moviegoers. Dangerous waters a little bit, muddying them up for more casual fans. At the same time, how do you they have a hard enough time introducing the regular Spider-Man. This being their third reboot on the character in like 15 years. But this is how they're going to do it. They're going to go about it starting with an animated movie. A major release, not a straight to DVD or streaming or anything. A major movie release. It's going to come out. It's going to come out in Christmas 2018, which I think is going to do well against Avatar and Star Wars Episode 8. That is a horrible idea, but hey, all right. I bet you they're going to move that if they can, or they're going to steer away from those two movies as much as possible.
You'd think at least. And to wrap up, to end our segment, it's our feel-good story. We try to leave you on a good note. This is in regard to 94-year-old Amy Creighton. She had put her education on hold back in 1962 to work and raise her 4 children. She just this week graduated with her college degree, and she earned a 4.0 average. So, it's never too late, folks.
That's... Hey, 4.0 GPA, I mean, that's pretty tough taking one class a semester.
You talking from experience?
I was working full time when I went to college. I didn't go part time, but I didn't go full time either. I was kind of right in between there.
There you go.
But I am talking from experience here. I held a 4.0 GPA.
All right.
I have to correct myself here, and I may just edit it out, so you may not even hear this either, because I will not. Well, I'll normally take the flack for most things. I will not take the flack for getting the Star Wars Episode 8 release year wrong. That is coming out this year and not next year. And as soon as it came out of my mouth, it was oh, that's just a bunch of garbage that just came out. That sucks. And I think Avatar's coming out this year as well. The Han Solo movie is coming out in 2018, which I believe still has a May release.
Yep.
But they're talking about pushing it back to December.
See, I'm telling you, man, I'm glad you caught it, because this is the kind of stuff that's going to be, you're going to have more of the onus on this one. I know you're a bigger Star Wars fan than I am. Well, heck, let's face it, you actually went and saw the last movie, and I didn't, for one thing. So
Wait a second. Have you still not seen The Force Awakens?
No,
you're talking about Rogue One.
Right. I've seen Force Awakens, Rogue One. Part of it played, I was sick. Give me a break.
Yeah, it's only been on more than a month now.
Besides that, we can overlook that.
Yeah, you might. Well, I don't know. Actually, this is the time of year where there's not a lot of movies coming out and stuff like that. So it's probably going to be in theaters for at least 2 more weeks. And then even then, if you've got one of those theaters around you that shows the movies after their major release, do you have one of those where you can just pay a few bucks and go in and see it?
Yeah. In other words, salty seconds, essentially.
Yeah, those are awesome.
All right.
Love those. I mean, you have to wear kind of like a hazmat suit going in there, but at least the one around my area it did. They closed it because I mean it was great because I saw a couple movies I just hadn't I just didn't catch when they first came out. But yeah, I mean, Salty Seconds is right. Good Lord, that place was gross. But you know what? I paid $3. So
Can't can't
so
can't beat that. You can't.
no.
Nah. We'll
No, you
see.
can't. But yeah, no, that's awesome. Take 40 years to get your degree. I hope some of that's relevant when
Same.
when they go in. I hope if somebody doesn't have head trauma, she tries to drill a hole in their head.
Yeah, and
And
that's the only thing I couldn't find on that what her major was. I wish they elaborated on that a little bit, but
I thought it was nursing. I thought it was a nursing degree.
well, you might
Was
have
I
heck.
wrong?
No. You may well have caught more than I did.
Oh, okay. Maybe it was basketball.
You sound so sad about it. I mean,
Well, because then I don't know if she's in engineering, she might try to drill holes in people's heads too. I don't know. I could have okay. So maybe it was basket weaving or something. I don't know. Okay, let's move on.
our main topic of
I'm hitting it out of the
yeah.
park here, and I've heard this.
Oh man, as we hinted at the beginning of our segment, our main topic is console versus PC versus mobile versus portable. Really
Yeah.
the center of this topic it really takes me back a lot. And I'm thinking about the console versus PC debate specifically. Chris and I have been console owners and PC owners. Chris has been a little more prolific on PC than I have. PC's been more of a something I've invested more in recent years. But consoles, man, going back to Atari, Commodore, Nintendo 64,
Mm-hmm.
to everything we've evolved to now, it's wild. Gaming's changed a lot, and I think for those who have really followed it for a long time, we've watched those leaps, and to the point where today, you pretty much with current consoles, we expect the glitz, we expect the glamour, we expect high-powered processors, solid speed, of
Mm-hmm.
course, multiplayer, internet online. That all is just meant to go together. But it comes down to it, you have to ask, what are gamers really looking for today? You know,
Well, before you ask that, let me ask you:
hmm
when you were a child, what was your favorite console? And I'm talking
How old?
from tween down, from 12
All right,
and younger. What was your favorite console?
it would have to be Super Nintendo.
Okay, yep, that's a damn good one.
uh, if I had to narrow that, which you haven't asked me yet, but if I had to narrow that to games, I think that was around the time I'd really started to get into RPGs.
Yeah, yeah.
So there were some good ones out there. Man, SNES, it was just hit after hit. Like, I mean, if you were playing a platformer, if you were playing a fighting game, as I mentioned, like strategy, like RPG, it just had it all. Like, I can't remember a time I was really bored during that era. There was always something I wanted to play or like wanted to play with my friends. So,
What was your favorite game on the SNES?
if I
Yeah.
if I had to pick one, just because of how expansive it was for the time, I thought it was pretty groundbreaking. Chrono Trigger.
Okay, yeah, I hear that's a class. That's some people still say that's one of the best games ever.
It's pretty legendary, man. I mean, for the time, playing something that had more than one ending, let alone 10 plus endings, that meant something. I don't think I ever
Let me
got
ask
them
you
all.
because I have not played. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you
No, no,
because
no.
on that topic, I have not played Chrono Trigger.
Okay.
I've had friends that played it. I've seen plenty of gameplay. You talk about had what 10 or more endings. Did it really have like were those endings really different?
Oh
Were there?
yes.
It's okay. So it was just like one variation. It was they were drastically different endings.
Definitely, and I know when you hear multiple endings, that's one of those things that you're kind of pre-programmed for to think, did they just make a small tweak or they add 3 seconds to something at the end? No, in fact, it went to the point where if you were powerful enough at certain sections of the game to just end it right there, you could. There's a point near the middle of the game where the final boss appears, and if you can beat him there, that's it. You get one of the endings, and it's completely different from if you actually made it through the whole story, went through everything and uh, did everything else you could change. Um, but
That's pretty cool.
yeah, man. I mean that, and then all your decisions. I mean, to a degree, there's only so much you can do in SNES, but a lot of your major decisions along the way would impact something else that might affect an ending or something else setting up for that. So yeah, groundbreaking stuff.
Cool, cool. Did they ever make a sequel to Chrono Trigger?
They did Chrono Cross. Now that came out on PS1 in the early 2000s. I remember I was in high school at the time. I was really stoked. I think there were a lot of fans that were sort of disappointed because it wasn't a direct sequel in the sense that you play as these characters again. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of people heralded it as more of a spiritual successor. Chrono Trigger was all about time travel. Chrono Cross, spoilers ahead, was more about dimensional travel.
Mm-hmm.
But the two stories you start to see how they connect around the middle, and then towards the end you see where the bridge is, where the two are. There's a couple of the characters that were really important for Chrono Trigger that you figure out who they are in Chrono Cross, and then you make the connection from there. I enjoyed it. I think its biggest downside, it had too many characters, and you didn't get to really explore any of them much, much at all.
Hmm. I think I have to agree with you. I think it still falls in that timeline. But I'm just, while you're talking about this, I'm trying to remember which one was my favorite. I'm a little bit older than you by about what 5, 6 years, something like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, so I'm not sure. I mean, because when you get below, what came before the Super NES, there really was only a couple systems.
Yeah.
There was the Atari and its various systems, and there was Nintendo. And I can't really think of. Can you think of any others that came out before then?
I mean, there's a really important one to mention. It was a direct competitor with SNES. I don't know if we can file this as before, but whenever I think of Super Nintendo, I think of Sega. Right, you know.
Yeah, yeah, that's with the Super NES. So I don't think that was before the
No.
Super NES, or not by much.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to throw myself for myself. I'm gonna have to throw it at the Atari.
Yeah.
That was pretty crazy. Yes, I am that old. I not only do not only was our first console in our house the Atari, but I'm actually old enough to remember when we didn't have one. That's how old I am. But yeah, the Atari was pretty crazy. Just to get games in your house on your TV,
Yeah.
the controller. Um, it was pretty crazy. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Atari. The Atari
Cool.
was that was pretty groundbreaking. The Atari broke a lot. We had a few of them.
Oh man.
There was also different versions. It's the original Atari 2600, pretty awesome. Those games are horrible now. But in fact, they're beyond horrible now. That technology, even in college, I even made a couple Flash games that worked in a very similar fashion, but actually looked a lot better graphically. But that's to be expected. But yeah, that was pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. Even though it looked like crap, it didn't look like much like them. But to play Donkey Kong
Yeah.
and Pac-Man and games like that in the home, that was pretty cool. That was pretty great.
So, so thinking about that, then, I mean, you're saying this whole idea, getting like the home console experience. How did you
Mhm.
take that and evolve to playing on PC and not just keep along the lines of console the whole time? What made you jump?
Well, it was never just consoles. I grew up with a lot of this technology as it was coming out, as it was becoming consumer based.
Hmm.
So we had one of the first computers. In fact, we had some kind of, I don't even remember what it was. It was like games came out of cassette.
Yeah.
That's yeah, we're talking that old. And look, I was pretty small. I was pretty little then, but we had a couple games like that. But my oldest brother, about 5 years older than me, he was really getting into this stuff. So when we actually started talking about PC games, we're talking about an IBM, we're talking about DOS based stuff.
Hmm.
King's Quest.
Oh man.
The first one, not the remake, which was okay too, but the first one in Police Quest, King's Quest, Space Quest, Sierra Games, which I don't even think exists. In fact, I think they've been non-existent for a very long time. They definitely haven't been shattering or anything for a very long time. But yeah, those games were great. They were again groundbreaking and fun. At the same time, they were extremely annoying because if you didn't type in the command just right, you would die or you wouldn't be able to move on because that's how you had to do it. I mean, you could move around with the D-pad on your keyboard and stuff like that.
Right.
But I don't think you even used a mouse for anything. In fact, I don't even think there was a mouse. I don't know. It was a long time ago, but yeah, so if you wanted to grab something, sometimes it was obvious. Like if you wanted to grab an axe, you type in "grab axe." But if you needed to do something, like for example, I can remember vividly, and you can probably find stuff on this online yet about some of the more frustrating things about these games. Police Quest is one of the earlier things that you did. You pull over this chick in. She's in a convertible, and she tries to persuade you to not give her a ticket. And if you don't do this just right, or if you don't put it in the command just right, you can't move on. You're stuck in this scenario. And she's flirting, and it was, I mean, I'm like 8. So I'm not sure how to handle that to begin with. So, because I'm 8 years old, and this chick is flirting with me. I'm like, what? Whatever. But yeah, they were very frustrating like that. But if you type things in a certain way, you also wouldn't. You would try to type things in a way to get a command in there, but then it would react the wrong way. Like you were flirting back, but you didn't mean to. We're talking very early game stuff, very early PC games. They were great. They were groundbreaking. They also had a lot of issues. And as I'm talking about this, another Sierra one. I don't know if you know about this or not. Leisure Suit Larry.
See, I did not play it, but I know the title. I do know what you're talking about.
Leisure Suit Larry also came out around that time. I believe it was also by Sierra, an adult game. Something which was a bit more common then. There weren't ratings yet. Occasionally you come across the adult-oriented game. There's a couple really bad ones out there, especially for like things like the Atari. But yeah, Leisure Suit Larry was a very perverse game. I remember I'd constantly lose because when I went to have sex with the hooker, I didn't wear a condom. And so when I went to the bathroom, I got an STD and the game was over.
Ouch.
Not joking. I mean, again, 8. I'm like 8, 9 years old. What do I know about these things? Condom, whatever. But yeah, so I mean, they were fun. They were fun. It wasn't a while until games really took off, but for PC. But that's a lot of what you had then. Of course, you're talking about 5, 6 years later, you start getting games like Doom, Diablo. Games like that. Those are obviously landmark games. But it was always PC and it was console. There was never just a one. In the evolution of technology took a lot longer then, and wasn't focused on like it is now. So these consoles or PCs would last forever.
Yeah. It's this is really the era I start to chime in on. You mentioned Doom, Wolfenstein, and others. This was really where I effectively became more aware of PC gaming. I think choice-based, decision-based gaming. In some forms that kind of lives on, like in dating sims and things like that. Depending on what your choice, what you do affects the outcome. It's not as like action-based or like an FPS or anything. But no, I completely skipped that era. Literally, I localized my PC experience starting with Wolfenstein and Doom. Especially Wolfenstein. That was really, really memorable kickoff into FPSs for me.
Mm-hmm.
I know just beating that, just the challenge of getting through it. I remember when I got to the Hitler stage, that was such a big deal. Like, you go through, what was it? It was like the armored Hitler who had like the dual Gatling guns. And I mean, that felt like the end of the game. And, in reality, you still had a ways to go. And that Wolfenstein took me forever to finish, man. And,
You had a ways to go after you defeated the double Gatling gun Hitler.
yeah,
See, I messed around with Wolfenstein. I never really played it much. I mean, I think Doom came out shortly after. That's the one I got my hands on. But I was at a friend's house. They had Wolfenstein on there. I messed around with it, but it felt like it felt similar enough to Doom to where I wasn't really all that interested in it because I kind of already played it.
yeah,
So.
yeah. So, but yeah, I think FPS has really, really got some strong footing, some strong foundation there. Way later on, you'd see games like Quake, also come in and I think elaborate on that even further. And way down the line, I mean, finally we had this move to console a little bit, down the line Nintendo 64 and others. Of course, everybody remembers GoldenEye. How can you not? But yeah, it was weird. This was really the open and closed book part of PC gaming for me. I dropped in with those two early titles, and I kind of went back to console for years, man. I mean, Sega and SNES were my main two. Finally got a PlayStation 97 around the time FF7 came out. Couldn't have asked for much more after that. Road Rash 3D, Mega Man X4, and Final Fantasy 7 were my first three games. And,
well, it's funny because that's but because part of what we're talking about now, talking about the beginning of games like this is one thing we haven't even talked about were arcades.
Yeah, which was a huge scene.
I mean that was it. That was the stuff. I mean, we had an Atari, we had Nintendo, Super Nintendo, but you had the arcades, and that was a huge thing. And so I'm in my early teens at this point when I'm going to the arcade a lot. Before then, not so much, and I wasn't really all that good at them. So you start talking about things like the release of the PlayStation. I mean, that was huge. That kind of coincides with one of the biggest arcade games ever, which was Mortal Kombat 3.
Oh yeah.
And then prior to that, you had the Super Nintendo, which I believe was the one that had Street Fighter 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they came out with a version for that for the PlayStation as well. But yeah, I mean, these were huge games, and it was a big deal because most of the time, home versions of arcade games were horrible. The graphics weren't as good. They didn't play as well. There weren't as many, especially something like Street Fighter that had you had the controller and like 6 or more buttons, and then converting that over to Super Nintendo with only 4 buttons and the side buttons, and but yeah, you start talking about the home conversions then, and then and that was a big deal because when the PS1 was released, Mortal Kombat 3 came out. It was a launching game I believe, for the PS1, and the conversion was like 95% perfect.
Yeah.
You'd really have to nitpick it and have them side by side to really see the differences. And of course, then before that, you were talking about Super Nintendo. You had Mortal Kombat 1, which is a huge controversy coming out. They didn't the Super Nintendo version didn't even have blood. The Genesis version, you had to put in a code, and that version didn't look nearly as good. And of course, that all ended then. Mortal Kombat 2 came out, and the consoles all were bloodified to their ridiculous degree. But yeah, so it's kind of funny because as time goes on, we're talking about new technology and how they're affecting each other. I don't think we can talk about this topic without talking about the fact that the home console eventually killed the arcade games.
Yeah.
Dead. It's dead. I don't even think, probably kids nowadays are like, what the hell's an arcade? What was that? You go to some places, they still have some around, but they're like simulator games and stuff like that. It's not even the same thing.
Yeah, I think this is something stateside that you see a lot more, the decline of arcades. I know it really just depends where you are. If anyone here keeps up with Evo, World Fighting Game Series, you'll Daigo Umehara, a number of the others that practice in Japan. The arcade scene is still, it's very much there. It's still pretty bright ground, for practicing and meeting up for gaming. And we just don't have that here. I mean, I'm right with you, Chris, that it's declined heavily because so many people are willing to, just simply either have someone over and play on a console or just play online. These days, sure, people mess with connections, so on and so forth. But I mean, the sake of convenience, I think, has outweighed actually going out to the arcade, having those quarters ready, having those tokens ready. But there's just a certain rush that you just can't get with console while being right there with playing arcade. I know. I didn't have as much experience as you did, like with Mortal Kombat, but I know when I used to go and do like SF Street Fighter, especially when I was like in 5th grade or so, the crossover series and that started X-Men versus Street Fighter, and all those. Man, it was great. You win a couple of games, you just kind of take any comers. Win or lose, next person who comes up, you either get back in line, like you'd stay on, playing who was gonna come up next. It was fun, man. It had more of a sense of urgency to it. But
well, so what were some of your favorite arcade games? And ones that you liked or played a lot on consoles, they count too.
The first one, I'd say it went in both lanes. A Time Crisis. I had the GunCon back in PS1, and I used to love the Time Crisis arcade. In fact, I think I've played and beaten every one of those that's come out, and especially in arcades. That's always the thing I'll zone in first on if I do go to a fresh arcade. But pretty much for me, it was games like Time Crisis, Jurassic Park, especially when you didn't have 2 players, you could sit there and dual wield. House of the Dead.
Wait a second. What would you dual wield in Jurassic Park?
Okay, so check this out. I don't know if you remember the setup.
I never played it.
Okay, so you were in this. You had like some overhead. It was kind of like a Jeep chassis, like the frame for it. So you sat down in this thing to play it, and both the 1-player and 2-player sides are really close to each other. So it was built so that one person gets in on the left, the other gets in on the right. But the way the screen was positioned, the way the guns were positioned, where you could just sit in the middle and just pot tokens or quarters, whatever, in both, and then you could just draw and just start dual wielding all day. And man, I used to love that.
For some reason, when you said that, I had a picture of like you're playing a T-Rex and you're dual wielding people. and you're holding the person in each hand. You're holding my leg, and you chop off one's head and chop off the other. Like, because I didn't know that there was a Jurassic Park arcade game. I'm just trying to. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, the shooter. I mean, I know there was another one on home consoles. I think like an NES where you did play as like the Raptor and like a few others. You had a choice. You could play as either side, but no, in the shooters, you always played as the humans, and you were always it was doing like a gun up, shooting down as many dinosaurs as you could. But no, I love that, and fighting games would be right behind that easily. As I said, the crossover series, in the Street Fighter, the Marvel v Capcom games, all that.
See, I'm sorry though. I find your staple arcade game selection to be lacking. So I'm going to throw down a couple names for you here.
Hit it.
All right, Gauntlet.
Oh, old school. Oh man, that was in my dentist office all the time.
That's they had Gauntlet in your dentist
office.
That was huge back then. There wasn't many games that were multiplayer like that where you could play 4 people and you all fought at the same time, and it was crazy. Really, they had a 4-player Gauntlet in there.
Man,
that's crazy. Okay, all right. Rampage.
Oh man, of course, who can forget that?
Oh, apparently you can because you didn't bring it up.
That's not the stuff I played in arcades. My thing with arcades, I came in on those late. It wasn't until Time Crisis and stuff like that was out. Like all these you're mentioning, I played, but that was a single player experience for me, man. I mean those were either, like I said, in the dentist office, set up in Walmart, something you do while you're waiting for your parents, like to finish shopping.
Oh man, fact, no, dude! All 3 monsters climbing the building at one time. That was the stuff.
That
they're making a movie off of that.
What?
Yeah, The Rock's in it.
No.
Yeah, no, I'm serious.
Nuts.
I'm serious. I know. Well, that's not as crazy as the Emoji Movie, but that's the thing. Unless it's not a thing anymore, but I think it's in production now.
Fair enough. I mean, that was one of the games that gave me the kickoff in one of my console favorites later, Bloody Roar.
Oh yeah, Bloody Roar. Yeah.
Yeah.
The furry game. Yeah.
If that existed in arcades, I never knew about it. But
really? Bloody Roar? No, I don't think Bloody Roar did. I called it but I'm glad it didn't because I could just see a bunch of furries around there. I would walk away. I would see a person in a bear costume and a rabbit costume fighting each other using werewolves and werebunnies, and I'd be like, you know what? Gonna go over here to Mortal Kombat. Thank you
I'm,
very
I'm,
much.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, that's that. You guys, you have that. That's your thing. Let's see some other classics. What was it? Dragon Quest?
Yeah, why do
Is that what it was called? The pick your path game?
now Dragon Quest was by Akira Toriyama, I thought,
Uh,
which was
what
on.
you know what I'm talking about though, right?
No, 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 no. I'm with you. Was that to do with the like the silver helmet?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah,
God, that game was annoying. That was a freaking
yeah.
that was a money sinker in that one. Um, let's see, Double Dragon.
Oh
I think that
yeah.
was
Oh,
yeah.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I
Man.
could go on forever. We used to spend a lot of time there. When I was little. We loved games. We were introduced to this by the hesitation of our parents, but with our insistence when we were little. So, let's see. Those are some classic ones. Obviously, and you brought up the Street Fighter. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Oh, it goes right along with fighting games, dude. Turtles
Yeah,
in Time. That was one that I
yeah.
played non-stop.
Some people say that's one of the best games ever too. Still to this day. Then there was, I think what we liked more, although we loved that one. What we loved a little bit more was the X-Men game.
Oh man, X-Men. I want to say these three were out at the same time. I remember them as like the trinity of multiplayer side scrollers. It was X-Men,
Mm-hmm.
the Simpsons arcade,
Yep. Yep.
and Turtles in Time, and Ninja Turtles
I
games. Man,
I want to say the Turtle game came out first, but I think actually the X-Men one did, and I think Turtles and Simpsons jumped on that, which were fine because they were all fine games.
right.
But I think the X-Men one actually did come out first. Now I hope some nerd catches me if I'm right or wrong and confirms that. Um, Yeah, man, there's some great stuff. I mean, I think when you're talking about the games that you jump in, there's the simulator type games where you actually hop in a machine and stuff like that. There was I think there was one. I think it was actually based off Top Gun. It was a plane one. I think it
Mm.
was a Top Gun arcade game. That was a lot of fun. Um, but yeah, I think this got me started on fighting games. I think you and I have talked about this before. The day I walked in the arcade and way in the back left was this huge, and it was a huge screen for the day. It was like a 50-inch, maybe even more, but it was like there weren't flat screens then, so it was this
Right.
huge tube TV. It was Mortal Kombat. And it wasn't like in your usual arcade box. It had the two, it was humongous. And these two controllers came out, one to the left, one to the right. And it was like I had a portion of my puberty right then and there when I saw that thing because I'm watching these people just, one of them's the blue guy and he shoots ice, and the other guy I don't, but they were different characters and they were completely, but they looked good.
Yeah.
They looked, especially for those kind of graphics, because that was not your typical. That was not your typical sprites. I forget what it's called now, and I should be ashamed of myself for not remembering what type of graphics those.
Right.
What it was called.
It's weird because that's something that we look back at that now and how that's aged, and instantly people say, "Oh man, there's so much more you can do." If you're trying to do semi-realistic depictions there. But you're right. There, most of what was built was always built to said game engine or to said world. I think what stood out about Mortal Kombat so much was it did have that slightly realistic cut to it. It was just so unique.
That
In
game
regards
would not
to
have
it.
worked had Mortal Kombat 1 looked any worse and not been what it was. That whole franchise would
Yep.
not have worked. It
Yep.
was, but I remember the first fatality I saw, which was
Oh
Sub-Zero
gosh. Oh.
ripping out the guy's head and spine. And I'm looking. I remember I'm looking around like, someone's gonna come in and bust this shit. This is we're not allowed to see this stuff. I'm like 14 years old or what? Like, I'm not supposed to see that. But here's a bunch of kids. I mean, you had two guys. They were adults, young adults. They were playing, and it's crowded. That's what attracted me to. I'm like, what are all the people standing around looking at? And there it was. And a couple years later, we got Mortal Kombat 2. And that was in a regular box. That wasn't in one of those big things. But I mean, yeah, these are, and Street Fighter. Street Fighter was huge.
Yep.
But I know there's others. I'm not talking about some of the classics. Like I'm not talking real classics like Pac-Man and Pong
Oh, of
and Donkey
course.
Kong. I kind of addressed those already. But yeah, man, the arcade was the place. That was the place until I would have to say probably around the PS1 era, and
Yeah.
when they were starting to be able to really match the graphics. And we talk about all this when it comes to the topic because I think this is relevant. I think this is relevant with the topic because you start talking about, well, why is one thing becoming popular and the other one's phasing out when we're talking about the same thing, which is video games, and so you're seeing it. Um, that being said, you're typical, and I know you spent some time in your younger years. You spent some time overseas, and
Yep.
by time I mean years. So maybe when you were younger, you didn't quite grasp what the American arcade was like, which was if it was a large arcade, which was in a mall, typically, like mine was. you know, Video games in general tend to bring in not the in generalizing, not saying that this is everyone, but
No,
actually,
I'm with
especially
you.
back then, not the cleanest people. Let's say, let's say, oh, we're kids, lots of smelly, snotty kids with boogers and dirt and all that stuff. So, and that's what they were. They were these bastions of technology and video games and smelly, nerdy people. And
Who forgot how to
it,
shower? But
it's hot. Well, not all of them, not all, but some of them. And it
okay,
only
yeah,
took one really
yeah,
smelly one.
yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
That's that's the thing. It only took the one stinker to mess it up because what is it? It's a big room full of technology, full of running electricity of game after game after game after game. So it's hot and it's stuffy and it's humid and it's smelly. So I bring this up because I think this is important for maybe part of the reason why arcades aren't around anymore because that kind of sucked. And now the smelly person can stay home, or you can stay home because you don't want to deal with the smelly person. I honestly think that had a lot to know. When you're a kid, you don't care. In
Right.
fact, when you're a kid, you've got a 50-50 chance you're the stinker going in there. So that's okay. But, when you're getting older and you're hanging out and, you want to, yeah, you don't want to deal with that. But, yeah, I think that's part of it,
Yeah.
what drew it in. But, so let me ask you this before we move away from arcades. What game did you spend the most amount of money on?
Uh, most most cash had to have gone into like it was either wait was Turtles one in arcades if I'm remembering that right?
I think it was the first Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game.
Yeah, I spent quite a bit on that. Quite a bit on that one, and it was always the side scrollers. Always, I know at one point Simpsons had its run, but I'd have to say Turtles
Hmm.
one. That's
What do you think you spent on it? I'm talking about in one sitting. I'm not talking about overall, but we can talk about overall too. But how much did you spend in one session?
oh man, if I mean see, I was always on like a short chain. That stuff like it's not. I mean, it's not like I was just dumped with like here's $80. Like you go crazy. Play whatever you want. I mean, no, if anything, I had a set amount. Sometimes even like maybe $5 worth or so to play with, and I just have to use that, and that'd be it. That'd be done.
You would burn $5 on a game in one sitting?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I actually didn't think, especially since you were saying that you were on a tight leash and all that. So, I thought I was going to have you beat on this. That was going to be, it was somewhere between $5 and $6 for me for Double Dragon 2.
I believe it.
I was determined. God, that was a money sink. God, that game was horrible.
Yeah,
I
it
was
was.
determined. I was going to beat that game. I'm not leaving until I beat that game. And thank God, because I don't know where you were at, but the arcade we had, you didn't actually turn in quarters. You exchanged your quarters for coins.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, so you had to do that too. And thankfully, because I was not going to spend that much. I did not plan on spending that much. So, you die, and you've gone through all your lives, and you got like 10 seconds or 20 seconds to continue. I would have to sometimes run over, shove the dollar in the machine to get my coins, and run back over. I almost didn't make it twice. I almost did make it twice, but I did, and I beat that game. I was there for at least a couple hours, and I beat that game, and that was one of the shittiest endings.
Yeah.
I was so pissed. That had an effect on me when it came to the kind of games I played in the arcade, because the payoff was ridiculous, and I remember I beat it, and I think the ending was both the Double Dragon guys and like one of them's girlfriend or something standing in between them, and I had, like it said, the end. I think it was like a heart on there or something, and that was it. And I'm just like, that is some shit. Right there. I mean, I'm like 12, and I said that. I think it's the first time I swore ever was when I was saying, like, that is some shit. Right?
I'm just gonna guess. I'm guessing that. I'm trying to see who you would have struggled with. Was it a Bobo? No, he was like early in level. Or was it like Shadow Boss?
I don't even remember, dude. I just remember that game in the later levels got so tough. I was just burning through money at the end of it. But yeah, I was determined. Besides that, the game I played the most, Mortal Kombat 3. As you well know, I was actually quite good at Mortal Kombat 3. Yep. I got invited to the national tournaments for that. Didn't go, unfortunately, because I was poor. But not because I spent all my money on Mortal Kombat 3. I was actually really good, and I hardly ever spent any money at all. I could go in there during its peak, and I could spend the 50 cents to get in, and I could be there forever, just knocking poor motherfuckers out left and right who were
that nightstick though.
Oh yeah, a striker. That's the crappiest character in there, picked intentionally because he was such shit. And everyone's using Sub-Zero and Cabal, and like, I'm going to pick the crappiest looking guy here, and I'm going to master this guy. He was actually really good.
Yeah, he was.
Creators actually said that he was probably one of the toughest characters if you could learn him. If you could learn him, which I did. I remember when they came out with Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 right after, they added in a couple more moves for everybody. I think it took me one gameplay to figure him out, how to add him into combos. Just one time through, I'm like, all right, I got this. And then he had a machine gun. Then he was ridiculous. I remember I came up with a 54% combo with that nightstick and machine gun combo. It was crazy. It was a couple hits and threw him with the nightstick and ended it with the machine gun, and that was with the Uzi. Then it was like a 54% or something. Like, all right, I don't even need to learn anymore. That's it. I just learned a 54% combo. I'm done. No one stands a chance. No, there was always a couple guys that were just as good as you, and you piss each other off. They always use Cabal, though. That really pissed me off. Use their generic shit, but yeah. So it got to the point where, and so now we're talking about 18, 19 years old. This before cell phones and such. That's all. Well, before cell phones were a popular thing. Right. Let me put it that way. My friends knew where to find me, because if I just went to practice, if I didn't want to take on other people, there was a bowling alley in the area that had the game, so I'd go there, and they would, where's Chris? They knew where to go. They would find me there more often than not. They would walk in, there he is, motherfucker. But yeah, man, the arcades were great. But now that we've taken that long walk to the side.
It gives you some pause to think. So I mean, you've got this huge body of experience from arcades, from console, from PC built at this point. What did you ever make a pivot at any point towards portable gaming? I mean, what even got you into that, and what did you get first in portable, if anything? I don't think I've ever talked to you about what you own.
So we need to define this right now for some people, because this is actually going to be muddy. There's portable, your Game Boys, your PlayStation Vita, wasn't it?
Yep, Vita, PSP.
Yeah. There's your portables, and then there's your mobile. And by mobile, we mean games that are on your cell phones and your smartphones. So we need to define that difference, because some people aren't going to know the difference there.
Right.
But they are very different. No, we got Game Boys when they first came out that Christmas. We loved them. And there was a while when it was, and quite honestly, this is the way it is for me. There was definitely a time for a long time where there wasn't a lot of PC gaming, and then there was a time when PC gaming dominated. To be honest with you, though, be it the Game Boy or anything else, what dominated wasn't the device. What dominated was the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be true. Then I'm kind of jumping ahead a little bit from what you were asking. But yeah, the Game Boy, which was great. We had that. I had a few games for it. Overall, though, and it takes a long time, I think, for unless you really like the portable section of gaming and the fact that it is portable. The Game Boy was nice for what it was, but it never dominated. It never dominated for myself when it came to the games because they weren't as good games. Graphics are definitely inferior. The gameplay, less buttons, less to do. But at the same time, that's kind of how those games were made. A lot of those games were made to pick up and just kind of distract, take up some time, but not a lot of it. And I'm generally speaking because there's definitely I think one of my favorite portable games for the Game Boy Advance, Final Fantasy Tactics 2.
Hey.
But I didn't really get into those the same way. So, and that's for me. I know that's not for everyone. I know people that they're dedicated to portable games, and that's what they play, and that's what they play the most, or that's what they play at all.
Yeah, I mean, you can really see this today with the 3DS, soon to be, Switch. Previously, before that, the DS. I know for me, it was always Sega before Nintendo, and maybe that was just due to my Sega phase. But I had a Game Gear before I ever had a Game Boy. In fact, I never even owned an original Game Boy. I did not pick one up until the Game Boy Pocket came out, and I think that was during the late '90s. But if anything, yeah, Game Gear with that big, bulky arse battery pack, and Lord forbid if you tried to do the battery pack extender, man. I mean, you may as well have been carrying around like 3 bricks.
I remember.
Yeah, for as cumbersome as it was, the huge carrying case and everything, man, that was so fun. And my thing was I was a big Sonic fan. The Sonic games, on Sega, and then Game Gear had its own set of those. And again, this comes back to what we've been pointing at. It's the games that brought you there. For me, I played through, all the Sega Genesis Sonic titles. And I said, oh man, there's a whole other side of it, like Sonic Chaos. And a bunch of others that I hadn't been able to check out that I could on portable and Game Gear. So it was a gift for Christmas one year. I wore that thing out. I couldn't.
What do you mean you wore it out?
It's doesn't work, man. It's last time I remember, it's toast. It's toast. I can't even tell you where it is today, but it just busted on me.
It's funny because we're gonna see a difference here. I didn't know that this existed. You and I, sir, we were on different teams. I never owned a single Sega gaming machine.
Wow, really?
Not even one. No, and it wasn't. I was either Nintendo or Sony.
Wow.
Never owned one. I had friends that had them. I remember the Game Gear you're talking about. I remember being on the bus and the kid had that thing.
Yep.
And it definitely looked a lot better. But yeah, that was that was one bulky thing.
It was.
But yeah, no, I never owned a single Sega product.
Wow. And it's funny because I almost feel that's the age where Sega tried to start overextending themselves. They had the success of Genesis under the belt, branched out into Game Gear. Later on, we were going to see all kinds of weird projects. That push into the 32X. Oh.
Mm-hmm. I've heard.
Yeah. Just no. And then later on, it had a successful run for a few games. I'm thinking of the Dreamcast, which ultimately crashed. It had its perks. I know the Marvel v. Capcom was, especially in VC2, was a big premiere in that one.
The Dreamcast definitely came out at a time where it was able to gain some popularity after the PS1 had been around for a while. My brother got one of those. I think the big thing was Resident Evil Code Veronica. That was the big thing for the Dreamcast. I think a couple others as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was short lived. I think it was the PS2 came out not too shortly after, and you had Nintendo around with the N64.
Yeah, beforehand, but I mean, PS2 just dropped the death knell on its competition. I mean, I won't get too extended into that one yet because that kind of falls into play. But man, from the library, from the graphics at the time, from the features, heck, half the people were just getting a PS2 because it was a DVD player.
Mm-hmm.
Which is something that you were going to see consoles pursue for many, many years after, and you still do. This idea of having a media center.
Well, not only
Within
that, but
home
at the
gaming.
time, the PS2 was the cheapest DVD player on the market.
Yeah, so why
When it
not?
first-
I mean, why not?
So that in itself probably helped a lot as far as getting into homes. Um, yeah, and I think wasn't the Dreamcast you had to have some kind of kit or something to make DVDs work on it? Like it had a DVD player in it, but it didn't work out of the box.
Couldn't tell you details. I know there were some
Yeah.
weird. I never owned a DC myself, but but yeah, and I think along those lines, with Sega's success on portable, you had other experiments too. The Sega CD. That's
Mm-hmm.
another one I never owned, but again, that idea in a very cartridge-heavy era, moving games to disc. That was
Mm-hmm.
still something I think that was seen as really, really risky at the time. It's a disc, man, it's crazy. I've talked to you about this before. I still remember walking into Blockbuster Video, and I remember when I saw Battle Arena Toshinden on PS1 in that huge black box. That
Yeah.
was like so hype. I'm like, how can you do that? No. A game is supposed to be in a cartridge, and then here you had that. But that's a whole other story, man. But yeah, Sega had the run. I think they after the portables, they really didn't do a whole lot after Game Gear. If nerds out there correct me, I could be missing a few. But you had a few that continued on. I think one of my favorite stories is what Nintendo did with Game Boy. You had the Game Boy to the Pocket, to the Game Boy Color, the SP. By the time the SP launched, you combined the best of all those worlds. You had this small little cube that you played, but yet full color games. You could easily fit
Mm-hmm.
in your pocket. In fact, they were pretty advanced for the time. I mean, you had a lot of classics, like new spins on those classics. The Final Fight series started coming out on that. That was one of my faves.
So what was? It sounds like you had a lot of portable
Oh yeah,
systems. What was the big draw about that? Like we had the Game Boy and we loved our Game Boys, and that was really cool, especially because we had I forget the name of the cable. You had the cable, you connect them, and you take on each other in Tetris.
yeah,
But
yeah.
again, it wasn't that huge. Not for us, not for us. I mean, we had it, and again, I had some games, but it just wasn't. It just it wasn't like a Nintendo or Super Nintendo. It wasn't a huge draw. What was the big draw about having the portable system?
The draw for me, I had gotten into portables around third or fourth grade, really heavily, and
Mm-hmm.
a few years after, that was my time I moved overseas. I think that's what sealed the deal for me. The fact that now I was going to be well away from home, well away from what I knew, and having something that I could, pop batteries in. I didn't have to plug into the wall. For goodness sake, the electric circuits were different. Between the
Mm-hmm.
UK and the US, I didn't have the same option. I think just having that accessibility, having that there, I really enjoyed it.
It was universal for you.
It was. It
It
was.
was it was yours, and hasn't that been even when it comes to different regions? Haven't a lot of the portable games always been universal and able to be used on the same systems and stuff like a Game Boy from the U.S. versus a Game Boy from Japan?
Yeah, I mean, to my knowledge, they tend to cartridges. I think never had a whole lot of discrimination. I think most of that came in when you're talking disc. For example, there might be some clashes with the UMD format back in the PSP,
Mm-hmm.
but some of those are kind of verified. But yeah, man, I mean, it was something that was accessible. It's something that I could, that I could take along with me, that I could play in the bus, wherever else, and that
Mm-hmm.
it pretty much remained that way for a number of years. I think my real refocusing back on the consoles was really the PS1 era and beyond. So.
So there, again, and I think this was important to talk about and spend the time talking about because we're talking about overall how these game systems, these game players affect each other, and I think I think with portable and with better graphics, you have the eventual phasing out of arcades. And again, they're still around to some degree.
Yeah.
In the U.S., they're all but dead.
Yeah.
But they're still huge in other countries. But we're talking about U.S. gamers here. We're in the United States, where all that really matters here. So that's a joke. But they're all but dead pretty much. For the sake of this discussion and what we're talking about, and I think that does come down to the two main things we're talking about, which is portable gaming and better graphics. I think a lot of people got to the point where it's like, well, okay, why spend this money at the arcade when I just spent 40, $50 and got the game at home? And for a while, this wasn't as big of a thing. But then as I think, as technology went, your home versions were better.
Yeah.
They had secret characters. They had different options. There were updates. There were glitch changes.
Yep.
Or glitch fixes that were in the arcade that didn't make it to the home version. I think it's a reasonable, and while no one thought about it at the time, the expectation would be that home versions would rule the day.
Yeah.
And then you get online play, and I think that was the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
Why should I go stand next to the smelly kid and play him in arcade
when I can sit right here?
Yeah, right. And I think that's interesting because, and I don't want to skip. We're having we're having a good time talking about the history of games here, but what you've had for a couple years now is a consistency, I think, in overall a home for PC games and for console games and for portable games and for mobile games.
Yeah.
I don't see one taking over the other anytime soon. And I think that's because for your different types of gamers, they're fitting different niches for them. So let me ask you real quick. Do you play mobile games?
There's a couple I've checked out. In fact, there's one specific one I checked out, and it was a shock to me. It was a few years back. Someone in my guild from FF14 mentioned, "Hey, you need to look at this. I know you're an FF fan." I'm like, "Oh, what is it? Whatever." It's like, "Yeah, it's a FF Record Keeper. It takes the old school like 2D turn-based play." I'm like, man.
Nothing says excitement like Final Fantasy Record Keeper.
Yeah, right. I'm like, this is just gonna be like the worst. Like, why would I ever try something like this? And it was actually pretty fun. Like I said, I grew up on FF, 4, FF6, Chrono Trigger, a lot of turn-based RPGs and things like that. And it was a pleasant surprise, frankly. But the Candy Crushes, all those weird puzzle titles and stuff, I could never get into those. For me, it's been more about the translations. Like, we're to the point today where you're getting the full SNES versions and past of the some of the previous titles you had. Like, you can pick up FF6, you can pick up FF5.
There's been emulators that have been able to do a lot of those for years now.
And it's to the point where that's translated to mobile. So in a sense, while I can't call that a direct mobile game, that is something I've checked out as well, which has been pretty fun. Although for the most part, I prefer to sit and play that on the screen, but a larger screen.
Well, so that's what we're talking about, though. That's why is this popular? Why is this way? So you enjoy. So there's a party that really enjoys sitting in front of the TV and playing the game, but there's a party that also likes the fact that you have these other games that you can play on your phone. Now, do you still play portable games? Do you still have an up to date portable device, or a portable device that just has games that you just love?
No, the last time I had a up to date, this will tell you how out of this I am, was PSP. I was really into the PSP era. I had quite a few titles ranging from everywhere with that. Really enjoyed it. Also, I liked some of the interaction they had with your PS3. Sony built on this with the Vita, and they're still building on it now with the PS Go and stuff like that. But PSP was my last real foray. I have not purchased a portable since.
Yeah, I had the Game Boy. I'm trying to think if I ever had another one. I did at some point come across a Game Boy Advance that was like a friend's, and they didn't use it anymore. And I'd always wanted to play a couple games on it while I was at work. So,
Yeah.
so
Good job.
they gave it to me. It's like, yeah, I remember in particular, like their dog had chewed on it, and so there's like dog bites in it, but it still worked. I didn't care. I just wanted to play Final Fantasy Tactics. So yeah, but there was that. Yeah, I never really got into portable. That being said, there's a couple games I play on mobile now. I think there's something to be said. I think in general, a lot of the mobile games, which are immensely popular now, I think what people like about them, generally speaking, not specifically, generally speaking, I think it's because they tend to be easier.
Yeah.
They tend to not, unless you go out and you find those Final Fantasy games, or you find those games that are real heavy on story and take hours upon hours upon hours of play. Generally speaking, the most popular ones are ones that are just pick them up and play. Something you can put down as quickly as you pick up.
Yep.
Something that just kills a little bit of time. Something that's just a lot of fun. I definitely think there's something to be said with swiping your finger across the screen versus clicking a button. I think it's becoming diverse like that, and you've seen consoles try to grasp onto that kind of market. But I think the mobile is where they really grabbed onto it, and we'll get into things like Kinect and VR and stuff like that. That's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So I think at the same time, what you're starting to find, and we were talking about this, and you're going to see where I'm going to segue into this, but now you're getting mobile games or mobile apps that interact in some way or function with like PC games.
Yeah.
Or maybe a console game. Although mainly they're PC games, I think. But I think a perfect example of that, which a lot of people may relate to, is the most popular game ever, World of Warcraft. Eventually came out with an app where you can manage things in your bank, or put things on the auction hall. Something that would take forever sitting in front of your computer, which was dreadfully. I played World of Warcraft for years. Dreadfully boring, mind-numbingly boring to hear these things. Like, geez, when I'm waiting on the bus or I'm doing this or that out there, and I just I got 10 minutes to kill, I can just hop in on my phone and manage my auction hall sales and stuff like that. I mean, so you have a lot of functionality like that. But I think you've got two main things playing a role here. I think first and foremost, the game is usually the biggest divider, or not divider. Yeah. Well, divider, but at the same time, the biggest decider. For me, the biggest reason why I have my current console, which is a PS4, are the exclusive games that come out for it.
Yeah.
There's definitely, even though they dropped the ball a bit on the PS3 version, that generation of consoles, not so much as far as the system itself, but the cost and how they handled a lot of those things. Yeah. At this point, I've actually grown a little bit of trust with Sony. But largely, when I look at this, and every time next gen is going to come out, I will look at the consoles that are coming out, and I will make a decision on why I'm going to pick which one. Because I'm not one of those guys. I'm not going to go buy each console.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do it. But I will make a decision based on specs, based on history. But the biggest decider are the games.
And of course, being based on history, of course, you're never going to forget that price tag, $599.99.
That's ridiculous.
Yes, 3 man.
But I think the game is now becoming the biggest decider, and now you've got other versions of that too. So, and this is something where I had you, before we talked about this, I had you watch a video about the current gen and which one's doing better, which one's the better version. And not to talk about which one's better, but something that was brought up in that as a key component is Xbox, Microsoft. Their game comes out for both the Xbox and the PC now.
Yep.
I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I think that lends itself to the PC.
Yeah, it's really become a bit of a reflexive action. I mean, and I think there's a lot of points you can approach that from. Obviously, with the Microsoft framework, it's easy to translate some things, but it's that idea of accessibility and profit. You not only hit the console market, but now you hit the PC gamers, and I'm always kind of with you that I think that cheapens a little bit. And the reason I own a console as well, PS4, we're in the same boat, is really due again to those exclusives. Now, okay, so much has crossed into PC, that's a given. And I mean, PC you can constantly tweak and just keep ramping up the power and speed to whatever you like. But, um, you know, when a release like that happens, you just start to think to yourself, well, shoot, what was the? There's really not a whole lot of sanctimony. There's not a whole lot of circumstance around this. It's just like,
Well, yeah, that's the whole line of thinking. I used to tell people for years. For years, they did, teenage years and whatever, early 20s, you'd have your friends. I was a PlayStation guy. They were an Xbox guy. And they'd be like, they say, oh, Xbox is so much better. I'm like, better or not, why should I get an Xbox when every really popular game that's going to come out for the Xbox is eventually going to come out for the PC? Because unless, look, Apples are great. This is not a discussion or debate about which one's better, PC or Apple. Most people have a PC. And you don't need a powerful PC to play the most powerful console game.
no.
You really don't. And so that being said, technology is not really a factor unless you've got a really old crappy PC, but most people don't. Most especially nowadays, the divide between the power of a PC versus the console is ridiculous. You know, why get an Xbox? If the single biggest reason to get an Xbox is, or your decision to get which console you get is the exclusivity of the games that come out for it, why get an Xbox at all? When they come out for the PC.
Yeah.
That's always been a huge factor for me. I love a lot of the games that come out on the PlayStation. I've been a huge fan of the ICO games, Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah.
Recently The Last of Us. Oh my God, that game! I'm still mad at you for not. I'm more mad at you for not playing that than I'm mad at you for not watching Rogue One yet. That's, but and there's other ones. Those are just the ones that I like. When it comes to the Xbox, though, I can just buy it for the PC, and I enjoy PC gaming. In fact, some of the most popular games for the Xbox have been their first-person shooters. Have been the Halo series. Now,
I was about to mention that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a niche player, but when it comes to how I like my first-person shooters, I like them with a keyboard and a mouse. I can't stand playing a first-person shooter with a controller in my hand. Drives me crazy. They're slow. They're rigid. The gameplay is not nearly as good. So that was the other thing for as far as an Xbox goes. Why would I want to play Halo on the Xbox?
Yeah.
What advantage does this bring? I don't even like playing them with a controller. So, for me, that's what it comes down to. In this, the discussion of console versus console is important here, especially when you start bringing the PC into it. When you start, especially like now with Xbox games coming out at the same time as well for the PC.
Yeah. So, essentially you're pointing this idea of this nexus point that I think not only games are hitting, there's some like Call of Duty, etc., NBA 2K, they're going to be out on everything. But, this idea of this convergence, I think what you're seeing as well is there's some makers trying to seize on that, and some devices trying to really bring all those realms together. The thing I think of specifically is the Nintendo Switch. We've spoken about that, but it's trying to be all of them. Besides mobile, I mean it's a portable, it's a console. You've still got it's trying to keep a decent amount of graphic quality while still trying to have multiplayer elements and really switch wherever you need on the go. It's got some cool features to it, yeah. Of course, there's going to be some cool games. Nintendo's done a good job, I think, keeping its properties, the Zeldas, the Star Foxes, the Metroids, all those, all classics. But at the end of the day, at least for me, it's not enough that has sold me, has won me over, as in I'm going to go out and buy a Switch.
And this might be part of our age. because Mario does not attract me in my 30s like he used to when I was 8. It's just not as big of a deal. And I say that not having always been a huge platformer fan. But you, on the other hand, you were a huge platformer fan. You said
Oh yeah,
Sonic was your thing.
yeah.
So I mean, where does that sit with you? If the Mario games, which they're great games. Every Mario game I've ever got my hands on was awesome.
Oh yeah.
But where does the game like that sit with you now, like a Mario game or something like that?
Definitely doesn't hold as much weight. I mean, I think the last time I really got in a couple Mario titles was back on SNES, Super Mario World, also Yoshi's Island, killer
Mm.
titles. They've had remakes and different versions of those since. Let's also include, let me throw Super Metroid in there, probably one of the best platformers of all time. It's still played on speed runs and everything regularly today. But when I think about a Mario title or something else, no, that alone is not something that'll make me pick up a console or even or console, not console, Switch, or even a Metroid title. Then again, that being said, I know there's some really, really hardcore fans out there where there's a Zelda game that comes
Oh
out,
yeah.
like cannot miss a Zelda. I know I've got a couple of buddies like that. But yeah, I think that is something related to age. I think it's part of it's because it becomes formulaic. You don't feel as though oh my god, I missed a title. I missed everything. What happens? No, you know what happens.
Yeah, but and I'm gonna name drop a series here that no one's gonna know about, but maybe a handful of people for anyone who ever listens to this. If an Armored Core game came out for the Switch, this MFer is buying a Switch.
Yeah.
That's where it's at.
Yeah.
So, and that's important though. I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about when did Nintendo drop the ball so badly on this? I mean, you still have Zelda games, and that's still a thing, and you still have
Right.
Mario games, but they just don't hold people like they used to. At least not in mass.
Right.
They don't hold people in mass anymore. I'm starting to, I think somewhere around the N64 GameCube days is when
I think you're on the money.
they started dropping, especially the N64 days. They were behind the ball before that system came out. And when that system did come out, and I'm not going to say it wasn't a good system because Mario Kart 64 is still the best Mario Kart. GoldenEye was unbelievably
Oh yeah.
popular, but and again, Super Mario 64 was great.
Great game.
But you know what? When I played that is when my friend borrowed me his system, and he borrowed me the game. And when I played GoldenEye, was over at his house, and when I played Mario Kart, was over at his house. And I think there might be something to that because I had a PlayStation. I was loving my PlayStation. I don't want to, I couldn't afford, nor did I really want it, nor did I really want an N64. But yeah, it just doesn't have the hold anymore.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, dude, if we found out that Armored Core 5 was coming out for the Nintendo Switch, we'd be buying Switches.
Yeah.
So not to counter what you're saying, but maybe to play a little bit of devil's advocate for the sake of the discussion.
No, I mean there's games like AC that have had the run on portables. I know PSP. I picked up the AC3
Mm-hmm.
in LR reports that came out in that. It was really cool to have those mobile. Though I am still salty about parts only available in that, and they never made available in the original. That's another story.
Well, let me ask you about that though, because if they would not have come out with those versions with the new parts, would you have bought them?
Oh yeah.
Really? See, I didn't. I wouldn't have, and I didn't. That was a line for me, especially when it came to Formula Front, which was a game that was supposed to come out on the PS2 for the US as well, but didn't. Only came out on the PSP.
Right.
And that was a bit of a different game. Most people are like, "What's this Formula? What's Armored Core? That's all right, guys. Just for the sake of discussion." So it was. So I mean, there's definitely some lines there as to why you make these decisions. And I think for some people, they're huge Zelda fans, they're huge Mario fans. Whatever else exclusive titles they have that I can't think of at the moment. which aren't many. Those are the main two. There's not a lot of others anymore. I mean, there's Star Fox. But I don't think Star Fox has come out for a game in years,
Yeah, they
years
had.
and years and years.
There's one. I'm gonna butcher this name badly. It's like Star Fox Zero or something like that. It was just demoed at recent E3. I want to
Oh,
say.
okay.
So there's still some. Yeah, I mean, there's some work going on with it, and I know the last huge run for Metroid that I remember at least was the GameCube. GameCube days. You had
Yeah.
and then Metroid Prime and some of those others, and they were actually good games. So
Pokemon is still exclusive on the handheld on the portables, with the exception of Pokemon Go, if I remember correctly.
yeah, I think what was it?
Never played one. Never will.
Yeah, it was like there was a Pokemon Stadium or some kind of Pokemon fighting game or whatever else that had some traction for a bit. I saw it played as it's like a side tournament events. I know when I go to conventions like Gen Con or ASIN stuff like that, you'd always go to the game room. They'd have some tourneys going on, and they'd have like obscure stuff on the side. Pokemon was there usually, but
Yeah. But that's typically related with Nintendo.
yeah, typically,
Pokemon, yeah. Um, yeah. So yeah, the Switch. This console is uh, selling itself as something that you play at home and on the go.
yeah,
We looked at it a week ago. We were talking about it and looked at it. You were more optimistic and nice about it than I was at the start. But I think at the end of the discussion was, hey, yeah, this is pretty cool. This is some neat technology. But when I asked, are you going to buy one?
no, and still
No.
no, and
No.
still no, yeah.
And I think that's taking definitely the long route around. I think all the reasons that we've been talking about here, take your pick. And for various people, it's going to be the reasons to buy one, or I think in most cases not to buy one. I still think, and maybe I'll get some hate mail for this, and that's all right. That's ksallmedia@gmail.com. Send it away. I still think Nintendo needs to go third party. Because, I won't buy the Switch to play the newest Mario game, but for nostalgia reasons, if they ever came out for the game on the PlayStation, I'd buy it.
Simple enough.
Would you?
Ah,
The latest, greatest version of Super Mario Brothers coming out on the PlayStation 4. Would you buy it?
you know, it's weird with me. If it was Sonic, I'd say yes, but due to Mario, probably not.
Okay.
There are always games I respected, but that I wasn't into as far.
Fair enough, but I think the point still stands as far as titles and
Yeah,
such. But yeah, Nintendo just doesn't hold it the way it used to, and it hasn't for years. But I think and I think part of the reason why they're doing this is because where they do still hold a strong grasp is in the portable department.
yeah,
So making a console that's both console and portable probably is a smart way to go.
yeah.
It's going to be 300. This is coming out in 2 months
Hmm.
from now. It comes out March 27th, I think. $300, isn't it?
Yeah. Last price tag I saw.
So, and I know they don't. I know it takes Nintendo forever to stop making games for a system. But do you think that this will be the Switch if it does moderately well? Especially if it does really well in the portable system, do you think that they eventually drop the other portable games, the other portable consoles, and just go to the Switch?
If it's successful, I can see them phasing into it. Like, for example, when I think of the DS now, I only think of that in the vein of the 3DS. I mean,
Hmm.
the DS came out, yeah, it was a thing. It was really popular, people that love portables, but I think they've slowly managed to shift that whole base over to 3DS. And if they can do that again with Switch, yeah, I think we're going to see a slow but really gradual phasing.
So let's play future teller here. Because it's always fun to do this. So with the Switch, let's say it does moderately well. Let's say it does really well for their portable base.
Yeah.
What do they come out with for their next console 5, 6 years down the line? Is it another hybrid
See,
or not?
this is the question, and it's a slippery slope they build. And it makes you wonder how badly Nintendo wants to or does not want to be part of the mainline console wars again. They've intentionally stayed away from this. for
Mhm.
the last few generations, as you've hinted at, because they got a really really good lock in the portable market. But um, they're gonna if it is really successful, I think it'll create a different type of demand. Of course, they're going to continue to pursue that angle. I think if that is something that they see as viable, um, it, I mean, it very well could be. Nintendo's always known for doing a nice, good trick, either from something portable or something else you could uh, enjoy from like a simple home system or home base. So if it is really hot, I think it'd be kind of hard for them to hit the brakes really quick and then only go back to doing something portable. Who knows? But
It would be interesting. It would be interesting to see what happens. There's a couple serious factors, I think.
yeah,
This from everything I've seen on the Switch is that they're selling it as the home console you can take with you.
right.
But do they? Maybe the way for them to go several years down the line is the portable that you also plug into your home. You use
Yeah,
as a home console, and kind of the backwards, kind of the other way around. It's also really dangerous, because I think for the most part PCs and home consoles have lived side by side just fine because of the multiple uses and just the way people like the game, and that's something we haven't talked about too much. I think, in my opinion, mobile gaming is just nipping at the butt
yeah.
of portable gaming. And if they put most or all their money on portable gaming, I think that might kill them.
Yeah, which is again why you're seeing them could very well be a reason you see this bridge starting to be made. I think it's at least going to give them some flexibility, depending what they wanted to do. Because let's face it, man. I mean, graphically, when you're doing things that you could easily have back in the 16-bit era, way beyond that at this point. You can have full 3D style FMVs on
Yeah,
mobile. That's hey,
mobile I think is only a couple years out from really challenging not just portable but home games as well. Just as far as quality of the game.
yeah,
It's only in some cases it's there, not in all games. Like one of the portable or one of the mobile games that I played is Mortal Kombat X, which is still a simulator of Mortal Kombat X
huh,
on your home system. And they interact with each other. You have dailies for each one. You have factions, and by playing them, you help your faction, you help your points, which gets you more stuff. They're interactive in that way. They're connected in that way with the account. But at the end of the day, the mobile version is a simulated play of the fighting game.
right.
And I don't know where or at what point it catches up, but at some point the ability to actually play a fighting game on there, just like the home version, it's going to catch up eventually.
Yeah, if it keeps up the way it is. I know there's some games that really benefit from the way mobile has a way of expanding your current menus or that current world a bit. Being able to open that up, whether that's just like a shop portion you're doing or something else. I think it's really cool. Heck, that's something I think Armored Core could have definitely learned from.
Oh, shut up! Shut up! No, don't. Because what pisses me off the most about those games is, as innovative as they were at the start, they were slugs.
Yep.
When it came to the latest greatest technology.
Yeah.
Now you got me sad. I need
So,
to get attention.
but
Because you're absolutely right. To be able to mess around with your garage on your mobile while you were away, while you weren't at home. Oh my! See,
yeah.
you shouldn't have done that to me.
Would have been gold.
I went from sad to mad.
Would have been gold.
Now I'm angry about it. Oh my! To work on emblems and to paint things.
Oh man, but hey, for those listening, we'd love to hear what you think. If you got an opinion on that, where do you think it's heading? What's some stuff that you would love to see mobile take on or expand from some of your favorite games, or maybe some things that it shouldn't expand to? Please throw us a line.
Oh my God! Yeah, we've been going. How long have we been going on this topic now? At least an hour.
Oh yeah, a little over that.
At least an hour. We could probably go on. I mean, there's whole sections of this we haven't talked about. I mean, I'm sure through our conversations there were some people that were like, "Oh, you didn't even talk about this. You didn't even bring this up." There's a whole bunch more, and yeah, Ian's got it. I think what would probably be best is if we stopped now and get you guys' opinions. Let us know what you think on this topic. Send us an email. That's caseallmedia, all one word. It'll be on the screen. caseallmedia@gmail.com. Let us know what you think. Tell us about the sections that we didn't talk about, because there's whole sections to this conversation that we haven't touched. Like, we barely touched the Xbox.
Scratching the surface.
The last 3 generations of the console wars, we've barely talked about that and the effect that has had on console, and a more direct competition between the PC and consoles, and how that's had its ups and downs for each side, and how they affect it. I mean, there's whole sections we haven't talked about. Maybe we talk about it on the next show. Maybe we talk about it in a couple shows from now. And continue the conversation. But yeah, I think at this point the best thing to do is hear what you guys think and bring you in on this. Send us some emails and we'll start it from there.
Right on. And if you feel like it, by all means, fave, comment, subscribe. Love to hear from you.
All right, so I think we'll wrap it up then.
Hey, it's been real. Looking forward to hearing from all of you. And till next time, peace.